Hey everyone, so it's that time again. We're going to have a look at the new stuff already on the PB for 9.10. We've got about 15 changes that will 100% be shaking up the meta, which is going to drop in about a week's time. Yumi is also going to be releasing this patch as well, so the new support champion, but we've got 4 really big nerfs to kick us off today. First of all, we've got a nerf. Well, actually, some people are calling this a buff. It kind of depends on who you ask. So Riven's Q cooldown has been lowered to 12 to 10 seconds from 13 at all ranks, and her E cooldown has been increased to 14 to 10 from 10 to 6. Now, a lot of people are focusing on the Q change and think that it's going to be a pretty big buff because that's most of her damage. At least for her damage, yeah, sure, okay, it is. So that could help her a lot if she's ahead and doesn't really need the defense, but to survive, it's really not that good. 4 seconds more on your dash is going to be a very long time actually when you're in a fight. Like for lane phase, you can't really block as much, you can't dodge as well, you can't like escape if you get ganked. What a lot of people are forgetting is that it's almost always the way that you set up a combo, and if you want to do anything, you kind of have to use your E first. Adding more time to be able to do that makes her less safe, take more damage anyway, and be able to make less plays, which I think is really big. This will definitely make her weaker in the lane phase, there's no doubt about that. And as you get to mid game, at least you have your Q par max, I guess, so you're going to have the cooldown there, but you won't be as safe at all. Don't get me wrong, I don't really like Riven that much either, but it probably hurts more than you think at first glance. And there's also going to be another change. So Conqueror's damage converted to healing, and the true damage has been lowered to 8% from 10%. So it isn't just that part to Riven, right? Like it's not just Riven that will be affected by this Conqueror stuff, obviously, but it adds to a direct nerfs. It's less healing, it's less damage at full stacks as well. It will make lane phase a little bit worse, but especially later in the mid game when the percentage means a little bit more. If you have any kind of synergy where you have like Hecarim's W that's healing, or like if you're building a Death Stance or something, that is when you're going to probably feel it the most. I doubt people will stop taking the Keystone because it is just that strong at the moment anyway, and like if you don't, like what else are you going to take? This should curb Riven even more, and a lot of others actually here are abusing it, so it will limit them a little bit, but it's not going to be massive. So that's going to be kind of hitting Riven a little bit, and Vayne is also going to be taking a tumble this patch because her ultimate tumble cooldown reduction is now 30 to 50% from 50% at all ranks. There are actually 2 nerfs to Vayne in this patch. Number one is here, and another one to Rage Bait, which we're going to get into in a second. Now remember, this was the buff that originally made her overpowered in the first place. Like Vayne actually wasn't that good, and then they gave her this, and suddenly she was top tier. If we look at what it's going to mean in game, like at level 6, 2 seconds right now as a tumble cooldown when you dive in to fight somebody, and now it's going to go to just under 3-ish. This whole thing really does let her get more kills in the lane phase and chase people down, and you kind of like, it is a massive underrated part about her that she can tumble so much, add more damage, more stealth, and more chase. It doesn't really impact her late game and mid game that much, honestly, at all, and when you're mid game, it is not even half a second difference, so I honestly don't think you're going to feel it. It's mostly for the lane phase. Now, the other part about this is the Rage Bait, right? So Phantom hit frequency changed to every 3 hits from 2. That is the nerf part of it. Now, to compensate though, the armor and magic penetration has been changed to a flat 15%, and it used to scale up to 15% at level 18. So I actually think this change is complete trash. Let me know what you think down below, but I think they should just nerf champions and not kill an item because of a couple. Vayne is going to be the most obvious one hit by this, and you're going to be about 1 silver bolt proc behind what you normally would be. It does reduce your burst potential as it's stacked up. It reduces your overall DPS as well, but it's not too crazy. So like 6 auto attacks, that would be 3 phantom procs before, now it's going to be 2. So take like Wit's End damage at level 18 for example. Right now on live, that would be 720 damage with the current and a 640 with the new. So it's kind of like a big difference, but it's not really crushing. For items, it's not that bad, but for built-in synergies with their champion kits, it's a little bit bigger. So like for Vayne, 4 auto attacks would proc your bolts twice, and now you only proc it once, so you lose 14% maximum health damage, and that is a lot. Yes, we are getting the 15% penetration, which is nice, but it only really matters if you rush it, which nobody really does anymore. Second item, you maybe get like 4% more penetration. It's really not that big, so lots of champions might need a new build. By the way, if you want me to do a video on this testing the differences between the champions on live servers and the PB, then leave a comment or chuck a little like on the video, and I'll do it this week. We also have some updates in this patch as well. So Malphite, to start with, his Q range, speed, and cast time have been increased. The speed buff duration has been lowered, and it buffs his move speed and slows enemy by the same amount. Your W is a bit bigger though, so the passive bar is the same actually, but the active, it resets your auto attack and deals a bunch of damage. It also then creates these shocks in front of him for 6 seconds, kind of like a Titanic Hydra does, that deals even more damage. There are some other parts of this as well, by the way, like his passive is really like obvious when it's active now, and it has brand new effects as well for his kit, including a little sick crater when he ults. These screenshots are from Surrender at 20, by the way, so I'll throw a link to that down below, and there are loads of little tweaks tweaks to how this kind of works, like where the Q fires from his model and stuff, but it should travel to its target faster, which is the biggest part. The W change is the one that you're going to notice in game. It should bring back jungle Malphite, maybe, but the cleave is actually really good, and it's kind of nice to have like that initial be higher and an auto reset. It lets him do a bit more after his ultimate, and it kind of lets him farm under tower much better as well. So in theory, he should be a bit stronger with that change. The other champion that I would kind of like count as an update, I guess, or like a mini rework, is to Master Yi. They've removed the cast time on his Q. You can now strike the same target again if there are no others nearby for 25% of the damage, and the duration has been changed to 0.8 seconds. The cast time on his W has been removed as well, and his E no longer gives 10% AD while not on cooldown. These have been changed a few times, but they kind of settled on these ones for now. It's going to be like a little bit easier to dodge things with a Q with no cast time now, so that's pretty nice, and easier to reset and block damage from your W because, again, no cast time. You do lose the bonus damage, the bonus AD on your E, which is probably the worst part about all of this now, and this is the one thing that actually like lowers his damage. Single target damage though should be a bit higher with the Q change, I think. Like when you're going 1v1 with somebody, you're actually going to do a little bit more with your alpha. The rage rate change will also affect him though, remember that part, so that might shift him to a new build along with these changes, but we'll have to see. Okay, so let's move into some of our buffs for this patch, and the first one we're going to look at smells like an incentive buff. So like a go play this champion because he isn't that bad. Brand is going to have his E damage up 20, rank 5 to 170, and the AP ratio up by 10%. If this isn't kind of like a nudge to play him, then I honestly have no idea what Riot's been smoking, because you max it last, so you literally won't get the 20 bonus damage until level 18, and level 18, 20 bonus damage doesn't really make much difference. Obviously, the 10% AP is going to make a bigger difference though, like 200 AP is 20 more damage, so it's a bit more in his combo mid to late game. I actually played with the Brand the other day, and it wasn't that bad because he still does do a lot of burst damage, but he's sort of a worse version of Lux and Zarya at the moment, I think, so we probably won't be seeing everybody running around to play him, but it is going to be a bit better. This is a lot better though. So Caitlyn's W headshot damage is up 20 rank 1 to 60, but it's going to be the same rank 5. Now 20 more damage in lane over a few traps will add up a little bit more, and I actually think this is pretty good. I don't think Caitlyn is bad anyway as an AD carry, at least like mid tier for sure. She has really good push potential, her range is really good as well, and she's ultra safe. 20 more damage might not seem like that much, but it literally starts at 40 rank 1 right now, so it's adding half on top again. So in comparison, it's actually quite a big increase. This is not the only buff that Caitlyn has received recently. Like she's had her buffs to her ultimate range and to her damage as well, so you can really crush lanes a lot harder now and pick up way more kills. If you can have some kind of synergy that gets those traps and gets those damage off like for free, like a Morgana Caitlyn lane for example, right, a bind in a trap, like this is actually going to be a really good buff in those lanes. Graves is also having his Q detonation damage up 20 rank 5 to 225, and definitely like I think he's been forgotten about a bit recently, but this will help him farm a bit quicker and burst a bit harder. When I was researching this video, I had a quick look at like how good Graves actually is right now, and apparently late game, if you ever reach it, is actually pretty solid, but like his early win rate is so bad that he just never gets there. If you aren't going to play him, by the way, and if you want to use these buffs and stuff, then you definitely should go Warrior, Ghost Spade, Dust Spade. That is the highest win rate build by far, and it actually looks pretty good. So Shaco isn't getting like a direct buff. Well, it is kind of. So his ultimate will go towards your cursor as you cast it now, and the clone will go in the opposite direction. Riot apparently did this because Chase Shaco and Pink Ward are two one tricks for Shaco suggested it, which I think is actually really cool that they kind of listen to people who play these champions all the time. It gives a bit more juke to him. You can outplay a little bit easier. That is the idea, and it handles a bit more like a Nico W, I guess. Soraka is also getting a buff in this patch, which I think is kind of weird because I've seen her a lot mid lane and she's actually really strong. So her key bonus move speed is up 1 to 5%. It's now going to be 15 to 35 once you max it out. Even though we have seen a lot more of mid Soraka, by the way, if you don't know what that is, basically you spam your Q, you heal for a ton, and they just can't really kill you. If we move away from that though and back into support, like Soraka actually took a bit of a hit after the update, like quite a bit worse actually, and there are other healers that you can play that are much better. If you max your W first, like most people, then it's a 1% difference, right? It's not game breaking, it's not really going to make that much difference at all. If you max your Q and you want to go for a bit more of a poke build, which actually does work at the moment, then you'll feel it a bit more early, but also remember it is passed onto an ally as well. It isn't just for the Soraka. So Teramere is getting a buff as well. Well, it's kind of like a buff and a nerf, I guess. So his EAP ratio down 20% to 80%, but the cooldown is also down 1 second. It's now going to be 12 to 8. Teramere kind of been left alone a lot recently, and I haven't actually seen him for a long time, ever since the crit rework where he kind of got screwed. If you can get ahead in the lane phase, then I definitely think he's still a pretty good choice, and at least now like your gap closer and your way to escape has a 1 second less cooldown, so if you're building AD, then this is just a straight up buff. Next one I haven't seen in ages. Xin Zhao's kind of disappeared, honestly, and this is probably the worst patch for it as well because of the crab change. We are already fighting level 2, which is exactly what Xin Zhao wants to do, but his Q cooldown has been lowered to 7 to 5 from 9 to 5. Early into the game, that's going to be 2 seconds off it, right? Which is actually not that bad. Normally, most people max their W into E, I think. So this is the last thing to get maxed, and that is going to be 2 seconds off for pretty much the entire game. He does still have a lot of burst potential, but if we're looking at carry junglers, honestly, you should just play like Rek'Sai or Hecarim or something like that, because Xin Zhao is kind of like been pushed to the side after repeated nerfs that we had a little while ago. The one major good thing about this, though, is his crowd control. So if you're going to duel somebody or if you're going to team fight, you're going to be able to use that knock up just a little bit more. Now we're going to move into a few items. So Essence Reaver, the AD is going to be up to 70 from 65. The reason I actually really like this is because I think Essence Reaver is a really underrated item on a few different champions. Stuff like Sivir and Xayah, for example, like they actually want to build this first. So this is going to be a straight up buff to them, which is kind of scary because Sivir is already one of the best AD carries in the meta anyway. There is also something else you can do with this that I think is going to slowly catch on, and this will be a really good time to do it. So if you go Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge as your first two items, you have 50% crit and a butt ton of AD. Especially more AD now because of this buff as well, but something like a Sivir who doesn't really need the attack speed can rush an Essence Reaver into an Infinity Edge and do so much damage with their crits. I think this would be a perfect time to run something like that. I expect we'll kind of see it a little bit more as well, especially on Sivir and maybe on some other stuff, maybe even like on a Lucian. Final buff though is to Runic Echo. So the total cost has been lowered to 2,500 from 2,625. It is only 125 gold cheaper, but that's like almost half a kill, so it's not completely bad, but it just gives a little buff to some AP junglers. AP junglers that I think are actually pretty good right now would be stuff like a Mumu, Elise, Fiddlesticks, AP Shyvana, Evelyn, and Karthus. Those are the ones that I see the most at the moment, so for those who are already like pretty decent anyway, this is just going to be a straight up buff, and you can't really complain. Okay, so those are going to be the changes coming into 9.10. Remember to let me know if you want to see this Rage Raid video or not, like a side-by-side comparison of damage between the two and see just how bad it's actually going to be. Yuumi is also going to come out in this patch as well, so it's something extra to look forward to, but I should be streaming right now as well if you want to come over and have a look. Thank you for watching till the very end, though. I really appreciate it, and for now, I will leave you with the robots.